Plato, life is the preparation for death. One winter, as you walk along a narrow alley in Athens, you might picture the back of a man crouched quietly beneath a weather-worn stone wall. He was always there, bowing his head as if avoiding eye contact, quietly holding his breath like a shadow swaying in the wind. On some days, he opened a small notebook and wrote something. On other days, he didn't move a finger, simply gazing at the sky as if exchanging indifferent words with time. At first, I thought he was an old man. Only those who had reached the edge of life could be that still. But as I came closer, I realized he was a young man, perhaps just past 30, with a straight back and clear eyes. I wanted to ask him, "Why are you sitting here so quietly? Why do you remain still in such a restless world?" But instead of an answer, he smiled and said, "I'm practicing death." Time stopped inside me at that moment. Practicing death was a sentence too unfamiliar and frightening for me at the time. But as time passed, I gradually came to understand the value of those words. What that young man said was something he had heard from someone else, from Plato. Life is the preparation for death. That sentence doesn't mean to view life pessimistically. Rather, it is wisdom for living life most deeply and fully. Plato placed the word death not at the center of fear, but at the center of philosophy. He believed that the moment we stop fearing death is the moment we become truly free, and that freedom, he said, comes through practice. This script, based on Plato's final lesson, explores how we can live better through the awareness of death. Death is not the worst that can happen to men. This sentence is one of the most concise expressions of Plato's philosophy. Many people feel puzzled or even resistant when they first hear it. How can there be something worse than death? We grow up learning that death is the ultimate fear. It is the end, the eternal goodbye, the disappearance of existence. But Plato challenges that very notion. In his eyes, death is not inherently bad. Rather, it is the purest mirror that reflects life back to us. In Phaedo, he says that philosophers are those who practice dying. Philosophy is the process of freeing oneself from bodily desires and sensations to explore truth and the world of the soul. That process, he claims, is living a life that prepares for death. To Plato, the truly terrible thing isn't death itself, but our cowardice in the face of it, or unwillingness to confront truth and the essence of life. For him, the worst fate is the fall of the soul, making unjust choices, fleeing from truth, surrendering ourselves to pleasure and empty fame. Such lives are dead even while living. Plato wanted us to use death to re-examine the quality of our lives. Are we living in a way that prepares us for death? That question is the core reflection his philosophy invites us to face. Plato's philosophy was deeply shaped by the death of Socrates. His teacher Socrates drank hemlock before the citizens of Athens and met death with calm. He turned his death into a teaching moment for those around him. Plato recorded this scene in detail in Phaedo and left the message that philosophy is, after all, the preparation for death. To him, a philosophical life meant transcending the limitations of the body and senses to approach the truth of the soul. This journey begins at birth and ends at the threshold of death. He divided the world into two realms, the world of senses and the world of reason. The sensory world is ever-changing, imperfect, and deceiving. But the world of reason, the world of ideas, is absolute, eternal, and truth itself. The body is a tool of the senses. The soul remembers and yearns for the world of ideas. Thus, death is the soul's release from the body's restraints and its return to the home of truth. This is not something to fear, but to welcome. A philosopher longs for that true home throughout life, a life that chases greed, fame, and power is one trapped in the sensory world. Only those who long for truth can remain unshaken before death. Plato emphasized purity of reason and soul, believing that by not avoiding death, but accepting it as part of life, humans could achieve completion. His thought was not mere metaphysics. It demands a fundamental transformation of how we live. Every choice must align with the nobility of the soul. Those choices ultimately shape our attitude toward death. In this context, death is not the worst that can happen to men becomes not just a declaration, but a summary of Plato's entire philosophy. In 2015, in a hospice ward of a hospital in the United States, terminal cancer patients spent their final days surrounded by both tears and occasional peace. A nurse who worked there said she could never forget the face of one man among all the deaths she had witnessed. He was a 79-year-old retired professor of philosophy. Though brain cancer had made his speech slurred and his body nearly motionless, his mind remained sharp. Facing death, he was more energetic than anyone else in the ward. He read Plato's Phaedo to the young nurses who came by his bedside and comforted them, saying, "Death is not the end of life, but its completion." On some days, he held a pen and repeated the last sentence he wrote. Death is the return of the soul. His death left a deep impression on everyone in the hospice. He welcomed death without fear and passed on a new attitude toward life to those he left behind. His funeral ended not in tears, but with applause. Someone said, "He was someone who prepared for death." No, someone who practiced death and taught how to live. This case shows how philosophy, far from being just an abstract idea, can offer powerful comfort and courage in the real moments of life and death. Another story is of a woman from Rwanda. She lost her family in civil war and lived in refugee camps for many years. Every morning she prayed, "I must live in a way that makes me ready to die today. She had never read Plato or known philosophical terms, yet her life embodied his teachings perfectly. She was not afraid of death and lived faithfully to the truth of the present moment beyond fear. Her eyes were clear. Her words carried dignity, and she spoke of death without hesitation. These people all saw death not as the final chapter, but as the peak of life. Those who faced and accepted it, who befriended death, now ask us this: are you living your life in preparation for death? We live in an age that hides death thoroughly. Social media is filled only with smiling faces and bright moments. Even funerals are held in quiet places on the outskirts. Children are told not to talk about death in hospitals. It is taboo to speak directly about death to terminal patients. But what are we losing in this culture of avoidance? Perhaps the ability to see the essence of life, to truly live the moment, and to be honest with ourselves. Plato's teaching directly opposes this culture of evasion. He tells us to look death in the eye every night. Close your eyes with the thought that I might not wake up tomorrow. When that thought comes not with fear but honesty, our attitude toward life changes. Waking up in the morning feels like a blessing. We say thank you more often. We avoid unnecessary fight and yearn for deeper connections. A life that practices death is one that recalls the end every day and lives each day with utmost sincerity. In Silicon Valley, death meditation is spreading among executives and entrepreneurs. They spend 5 minutes a day imagining their death and deciding their daily priorities based on what they would want to say, do, or leave behind at the end. This practice leads to clearer decision-making and deeper human connection, even 2,400 years later. Plato's philosophy still holds relevance at the forefront of technology. Because death is the ultimate human question, we seek the meaning of life. But when faced with the fundamental question of death, we turn away. Plato tells us not to take that question out every day. Then the center of our lives will shift, and only what truly matters will remain. Family, friendship, truth, care, love, courage. Death is the mirror and compass that reveals them. In today's world, this philosophy brings us closer to being human. What kind of life are you living right now? When you wake up in the morning, do you remember that today could be your last? Or are you just going through the motions, chasing a future called tomorrow? We often say, death is far away, but is it really? Without needing statistics, we know death can come to the young, to the healthy, without warning. Then why do we avoid it? Refuse to speak of it, push it into the back alleys of life? Is it because it makes us feel helpless, uncomfortable? Then let me ask the opposite. What do you wish to learn through death? To prepare for death is to design your life. What will you do today? To whom will you say thank you? What legacy will you leave behind? These questions only become clear in front of the mirror called death. So, I ask you, on the day of your funeral, what would you want people to say about you? He was rich, she was successful. Or, being with that person always brought peace. When you imagine your death, what does your life look like? If you had to say goodbye tomorrow to someone you love the most, what would you want to say now? And why haven't you said it yet? If there's someone you haven't reconciled with, someone you haven't apologized to, someone you haven't thanked, bring their name quietly to mind. Hold that name close to your heart. Can you begin today again with that name? Plato said this: death is not the enemy of life, but its teacher. Facing that teacher today, perhaps, that is the bravest question of all. To rewrite your life doesn't start with a grand decision. Preparing for death is the same. It starts with changing one small habit. The following are concrete practices to apply Plato's philosophy to your life and live with dignity as you practice death. First, begin your day by asking yourself, if today were my last, what would I want to do? This question brings sincerity to your day and helps you avoid wasting time and emotions. Second, spend at least 5 minutes each day in silence, observing your inner self. Plato emphasized listening not to the external world, but to the soul's voice. Put down your phone, close your eyes, follow your breath, and ask yourself, who am I? Where am I headed? Third, practice death meditation once a week. Imagine the face of someone you love. Picture your last words. Think about the things you regret and what you still long to do. This practice clarifies priorities and deepens relationships. Fourth, purify your speech. Plato said that language reflects the soul. Avoid gossip, blame, and lies. Speak one true word each day. Thank you. I love you. I am sorry. These are the words of someone preparing for death. Fifth, write your own death notebook. This is not a legal will. It's a place to record what you truly want, what messages you wish to leave, and which feelings you want to express while you're still alive. It becomes your compass, returning you to center when storms arise. Sixth, simplify your life. Let go of useless possessions, unnecessary schedules, and hollow relationships. Those nearing death, keep only what truly matters nearby. Begin practicing life minimalism now. This isn't just tidying up, it's returning to the essence of your existence. Seventh, once a month, speak your heart to someone close. Parents, friends, colleagues, lovers. If you don't express it while you're alive, your truth will be buried. Plato's concept of death may not be the death of the body, but the death of unspoken feelings. These strategies are not just about understanding Plato's quote, but engraving it into your life. From this moment, you can become someone who prepares for death and lives the most vivid life. Life is short. The soul is deep. Practicing that depth daily, that is Plato's final philosophy. The darker the night, the more clearly the stars shine. Life is the same. The darker it becomes, the more we see its light. And that light always begins from the end. Plato tells us that death is not the end. It is a new question. Not a finality, but another beginning. The fact that you are alive in this moment means there are still things you must say, people you must love, and something you must leave behind. I remember a boy. Every night, he would sit with his grandmother and talk while watching the stars. She always said, "Someday, we'll become stars and meet again." It wasn't just a comforting line. It was the purest promise of love. When she passed away, the boy looked up at the sky for a long time and cried in silence. Then, a single star sparkled. That's when he understood. Death is not disappearance, but a different form of existence. From that day, he smiled more often, said, "I love you" more often, and held people's hands more often. To accept death is not to give up on life. It is the beginning of loving life more desperately. Plato's death philosophy was, in the end, a life philosophy. Only those unafraid of death can truly live. Only those who are grateful for being alive can feel each moment beautifully. If you felt something stir in your heart while reading this, it means your soul is deeply present in this moment. We will all disappear someday, but before we do, there are things we can leave behind: sincerity, love, courage, and memory. These four things are the only languages that pass beyond death. At this very moment, picture the face of someone beside you. Speak your truth to them. Thank you. I love you. I am happy we were together. Those words may be the greatest gift life can offer us. To prepare for death is to live today with no regrets. When we all leave one day, may someone say this about you: "He was such a warm person to the very end. She loved with all her heart until the moment she left." And maybe that is the final lesson Plato left for us. What did you feel after reading this story? What does death mean to you? And what is one sincere sentence you most want to leave in this moment? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. May this space become our shared ground for speaking of life, death, and what it means to exist.